Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Paris and Baz Cast, where we bring to you new guest speakers every week to talk about topics that impact property management, sales and finance. Today we are joined by Melissa Morgan from Progressive Property. Hello Melissa.
Hi, thanks for having
me.
Welcome. Thank you.
So the topic of discussion today is how we can minimise rental vacancies in your residential investment properties. And we're going to be discussing some tips and strategies on how you can work closely with your property manager to be able to get your property leased out as soon as possible. So without further ado, let's get this started.
Yeah, just a brief introduction and a background base of Melissa.
Yeah, sure. So I've been an investor for the last 19 years or so. Yeah. I started in 2000 when I was 18. Yeah. I bought a little studio in Potts Point and got bitten by the property bug, and then went around the country buying more properties all through my 20s. Yeah. So I was fortunate that I started really young. Yeah. And collected, I've got 4 in Queensland, 2 in Adelaide, 1 in Melbourne, a couple more in Sydney.
Lovely, yeah.
So I've been a long time investor. Yeah. But when I was young, my first property, I ended up going to tribunal when I was 19.
Oh wow! Yeah. That would have been quite an experience.
It was terrifying. Yeah. And at the time, my property manager had not done the right thing by me.
Oh, okay.
And so after that, I just took it into my own hands. Yeah. And so ever since, I've managed my own Sydney properties.
Lovely.
And along the way, I'd become a licensed, I tried my hand at being a buyer's agent. Yeah. I've been doing flips and renos. Yeah. More recent years, I did some developments of townhouses, duplexes in the west, and now some townhouses in the east. Yep. But I'd always wanted to go back to the property management side. Yep. And I wanted to build an agency that was, passionate about customer service and delivering really great results for investors. Yep. And it was more strategic and more about, partnering with clients to build an asset and not just reactive.
Exactly. So to be able to build a portfolio and to be able to add value as opposed to just being a single property based
transaction.
It's more just a long-term relationship where you can help the clients build more properties over time. You can assess whether their property's gone up in value. Look at value add strategies like renovations. Right. It's really
the holistic approach.
It's everything covered and not just one very small piece.
Yeah, well that resonates very well with us because that's just the strategy that we've adopted, our core blueprint of the agency that we're running. So it's great to have that sort of be on that same wavelength in that point of view. So talking about vacancies now. Let's talk about the market in general. Obviously, every different pocket within Sydney is experiencing different supply and demand. What have you found, and what overall from your pocket of where you're dealing with? What's been the market like?
Well, I'm based in Sydney's east and in the west, so a little bit further from you guys. But I think we were just talking about how the market has softened overall.
Yes, from a rental point of view.
Yeah, from a rental point of view in many different parts of Sydney. Yeah. I mean, some areas are still holding out very strong, and some properties are renting out straight away for the same rent they were getting. And then other parts, there seems to be a high volume of similar properties on the market. And I think a lot of that is in part to the development that's happened in the last few years. It's an oversupply of new properties that have just settled or hit the market. And then those markets are more challenging, and I'm seeing falls of maybe 5 or 10% in the rent,
especially in the apartment market.
And especially also in the older apartment market where the newer one, a lot of the tenants have moved to the newer apartments, and the older ones are harder to rent.
And what are some of the strategies you are using to negate these factors?
Yeah, well, for me, I think one of the most important ones is to try and keep the current tenant in the property.
That's right.
Because if you've got a good tenant, they're looking after the property, they're paying the rent, but they may be looking around going, if I move to the building next door, I might be getting, a discount. You want to be trying to mitigate that and be talking to them before they decide to make that decision.
So it's basically building a relationship, ongoing relationship, so they stay in there longer.
And again, it is that proactive approach to be able to see what expiries you've got coming up and who do we need to speak to well in advance to say, look, hey, this is what's coming up. What would you what would you propose to do? What are you looking at?
What are your plans? Are there improvements we can make that might make your life, more enjoyable living in the property? Sometimes it's little things like fly screens. Over summer they might not like that there's no fly screens, and that's only minor.
Especially with Christmas coming around as well, so this is a very vital period to make sure you have the tenants in there because you don't want to have properties vacant during the Christmas period.
exactly. I mean, people, as they get close to Christmas, just stop looking. They
Yeah.
don't want to plan to move over Christmas.
Yeah.
So it becomes very quiet.
So the earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah, and if you can get them to sign up on a new fixed term agreement over Christmas, then you know that you'll get through that period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is just, sometimes if you have a small rent reduction, it's better than having the vacancy and having to pay the letting fees.
That's right, yeah. So because you're looking at advertising, you're looking at letting fees, and potential vacancy. So all of that adds up over the year. So if you are better off providing a discount, as it is for $20, $30, depending on what exactly it is, then you're better off doing that.
Yeah.
So in an instance where the tenant has to go because they've bought a house or they've got to move jobs and whatnot, what are some of the things that we can do to minimise the vacancy?
Well, the first thing I would do, and even I would do this before they've left, is to understand your market. Have a look and see how many properties are currently vacant in the suburb. How many 2-bedroom properties or 3, the same type of property that you've got. So that way you know where the market is at for how much rent you should be asking. So when I think it comes to filling a vacancy, it's really about marketing and price. So if you try and price it right, then it comes down to the marketing. And then I think when you have people through, like if you have an open and you don't have any people through the door, then I think it's sort of marketing related. But if you've got people through the door but they're not applying and there's no interest, then I think it's price related. And then there's a lot of strategies that you can do around marketing. I mean, professional photography is one that I really believe in. I always do it for all my clients as part of the service because I think it just shows the property in its best light and will get people through the door.
And the other thing we were talking about was virtual furniture. A lot of the times if the property is not styled the best way from a tenant's point of view, they haven't utilised it the best way, all of that can be changed over to professional furniture. They do quite a good job these days, not to make it look too fake, but it does make it visually appealing, because when people are comparing it on that website or on the portal, they can actually see that in a better comparison as opposed to having a professional photo and then not a professional photo.
Yeah, exactly.
I think all these 1%ers, they count, especially if you want to get a lease at the right price and quickly.
I think you've got to do everything you possibly can to give your property the best shot. And little things like looking at how your property differentiates in a positive way to everything else in the market. Maybe it's aspect when it comes to an apartment. Maybe you've got a pet-friendly property, and it is also, I think, opening the opportunity to have pet owners rent your property.
That's right. So I guess the other bits and pieces from a pet point of view, I think I've heard, I think the Novax had previously mentioned that if there is some sort of a bond that can be paid from a pet point of view, or even from if you would do a tenant could offer like I'll pay your landlord insurance for a year, it's $360, but at least if it gives you that front foot to be able to get that property leased out and open that option to a different type of tenant, it allows it to be leased a lot quicker as well.
And I find that tenants with pets, I mean, you would obviously go through reference check and know that they've saved you an apartment, that they're already living in an apartment, so the pet is used to that confined space. Also, often I've got references from vets that actually have confirmed for me that the pet's well trained, toilet trained. But getting the pet in, usually when the pet's settled, the owners will actually stay at the property longer.
That's right.
It's a better long-term tenant.
That's right. Well, hello to everyone that's coming on. I've got someone saying hello over there on Insta. I've got Facebook personal page and our business page going on as well. So what other strategies can we do?
So I think it's looking at when the lease ends is a really important strategy. I always make sure that my leases aren't ending right in the December-January period. Like we said, you don't want it to be vacant over Christmas. But also, if you look at vacancy data over winter is also a really high vacancy period. So I always try
or look at new properties.
I think it gets dark really early. Nobody wants to do opens. It's just statistically every year when you look at the vacancy data over June and July, it always peaks. So I mean, sometimes even a few weeks can make a difference if you just get over that into the sort of slightly warmer period. It helps.
It can affect the landlord's cash flow.
And the other thing that we've also found working well is, say if we've again, it comes down to the communication, the relationship you have with your tenant. So the longer lead times that you can get, so as opposed to if it is a 21-day notice period or a 14-day notice period, if you get that 28-day notice period, for example, it allows you to have multiple open homes before the time that they have to vacate, which allows for, obviously, anyone that's moving in has to give their notice as well. So if we can start a bit early, it helps with the process of being able to have that seamless flow when the lease expires.
And again, it reduces your vacancy period.
That's right.
Ultimately.
Yeah. So I guess the main point here is the proactiveness of the property manager, or if it is you manage by yourself, having that sort of relationship with the tenant to be able to speak to them.
I think the relationship is the key. Once the tenant is in there, to give long term.
Open that conversation early so that they know that you're happy to be flexible around.
Okay, so now that, let's say the property is vacant and it's not being able to be leased out, what are some of the options that owners can look at?
So I think after you've looked at marketing, so making sure the property is well presented and the price, then look at where you can, market the property further. Things like social media these days are really taking off.
Look, that's our personal example as well.
We're on social media.
Exactly, we're on social media. Facebook Marketplace is great for that. There's a separate category for properties for rent, and a lot of tenants are coming through from there as well, from our personal experience. So that's definitely a key. So to be able to find out different avenues of marketing.
So on top of the main pages, there's also rent.com.au. There's even Gumtree. There's Flatmates. Depending on the type of property you've got. There's a lot of different places, and even just posting it on social media and getting it shared between people often can come up with a result.
To be able to find that.
True. Very good.
Perfect. Is there anything that we've missed? Or any personal stories or any case studies that you want to share?
I've dealt with a few actually. Recently I had a unit in Rhodes. So it was a 1-bedroom and there was literally 50 that were identical on the market. And I was like, well, how am I going to get this one rented before the others? And it really was trying to pick the features of the property that a tenant would want. So we realised this one had timber floorboards, whereas the others were all carpeted, and the building was pet friendly, and the owner had previously lived there with cats. So I pushed those two pet friendly timber floors and a northerly aspect. And I got it rented within a week.
Wow.
So it really
do look at that, because obviously when there's so many options for tenants to choose from, if they have something that fits a lot of their criteria, definitely they're going to
come and see yours first. And then another one where a client recently came to me and said, my property's been on the market for a few weeks with my old agent. It's just not renting. And we looked at the ad. The photos were done on an iPhone. They were dark. They were crooked. And then the ad was three lines long. There was no description of the features. It was actually all done in capitals with typos.
Oh, wow.
So it's really about highlighting those features and giving people the reason to come in the door. Going through air conditioning, whether gas cooking, there's heating and cooling, other options. There's extra storage. All those things really help.
So being able to promote the property of the way it is. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. If there's any other questions, do feel free to share them on these channels. More than happy to answer them afterwards as well. Thank you very much for your time.
That's okay.
And do tune in next week. We are working with Malfa's General Manager, Tim Spencer, who's going to be coming to talk to us about the Norwest Smart City, about what is planned for this area of Norwest. Some exciting changes coming up. So stay tuned for more information on that one, and do come back next Thursday at 3 p.m. for more details. Thank you very much.
Have a good
Thank you.